Hello, and welcome back to another jam-packed episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and today I want to give you a sneak peek at a brand new program that I am putting out. And it's something that I have to say over the years, I've been surprised that I haven't seen more material about it, and certainly nothing really organized. And it is the topic of bottoms up kettlebell training, which, in my own experience, as well as the experience of a number of my students, is like a cheat code in many ways to just making faster progress, really speeding up the path that you're going to take in order to get a hell of a lot stronger. And there's a fair bit of nuance to it, as a matter of fact, and it can be used very effectively even by people who are relative beginners. You don't have to do anything super complicated. And as you're going to find out momentarily, what's especially nice about it is that with light and modest weight and minimal repetitions, with just some regular practice, you would be amazed, gobsmacked even, at how much faster you can get stronger. For instance, I'll tell a little bit about how I used bottoms up training to get back my 40 kilogram or 88-pound one arm kettlebell military press with very light weights and very minimal pressing. But I'll leave that for the end. For right now, I want to dive right in. But before we do, I want to invite you to try out my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge if you have not already. And if you're curious, what is this 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge? Well, it is based around the body's natural movement pattern, the most natural movement pattern of them all, which is the gait pattern. Now, obviously, there are other ones like pressing and pulling and squatting and things like this that are super important, but they all just seem to get better when you are good at crawling for distance or for time, doing loaded carries, or just walking with weight. And I must say, it is very underutilized. But those who spend a good amount of time doing it are always very impressed at the results they get. I've had a couple of people tell me, for instance, there's a guy, Jason in Canada, who said that his martial arts practice just went through the roof and was quite a bit more effective. Same thing with his weightlifting. Everything got a lot easier, a lot better. No, it's not magic. It's simply moving the body the way that it was made to move. And if you try it out yourself, you don't need to stop your current program. You simply toss it in either on your in between days or maybe as an extended warm up or finisher or something along these lines. I think you'll be very, very impressed. So go to 9minutechallenge.com. You can get your own free copy. That is the number 9minutechallenge.com. All right. Now, as I promised, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the Bottoms Up Kettlebell Crash Course that I'm going to be putting out momentarily. And I want to start off by reading the prologue. And this is something that I think really sums up the biggest benefits of bottoms up kettlebell training, which I'll just give you the spoiler alert is basically faster progress, fewer reps, better protection of the joints, and less weight overall. So if you've got other things that you've got to focus on, you need to get in, out, and strong. This is a really fantastic way of doing it. So here's what I've written up for part of the prologue. And the prologue is called Jumping the Path. Years ago, a friend of mine asked me what my favorite book of the Hebrew Bible was. And I thought about it for a minute and then enthusiastically responded, Genesis. The opening book of the Holy Scriptures contains such spellbinding, mystical stories and imagery that you almost can't help but be captivated each moment while reading. And that's not just with things like the creation story either. Even in seemingly mundane happenings, there is often a mystical element hidden in the text that is easy to miss if you're not paying close attention. In Genesis 23, Abraham's wife, Sarah, dies and is buried in the cave of Machpelah in Canaan, or modern day Israel. In Genesis 24, we again encounter Abraham, this time aged and weak, who tasks his servant Eliezer with traveling to Aram Naharaim in his homeland of Mesopotamia, a trip of many hundreds of miles, to find a suitable wife for his beloved son Isaac. Now, this is where things get interesting because the text says that Abraham's servant meets Laban, the father of Isaac's future wife, Rebekah, and tells him, I came today to the spring. This is a spring where Rebekah demonstrated great hospitality by watering all of his camels unprompted. Now, many Jewish commentators point out that he says, I came today to the spring, and that implies that he set out on his journey and arrived the very same day, again, hundreds of miles away. And this is the first of several instances of what's called kfitzat derech, or jumping the path in the Hebrew Bible. A few chapters later, we encounter Jacob, Isaac's son, on a journey from Beersheba, or Beersheba in Hebrew, to Haran, the birthplace of his mother. And as he lays down to sleep for the night, he ends up having his famous dream of a ladder reaching up to the heavens with angels ascending and descending. Then the Almighty appears to him and promises him the land upon which he lay would be given to him and his descendants, and they would spread out to all four corners of the globe. And once again, many Jewish commentators speculated that Jacob had already reached Haran when he had this dream, and that he jumped the path to Mount Moriah, the site of the future first and second temples, to receive this message. Now, whatever the case may be, the deeper meaning of these passages from this perspective seems to be, if your end goals are righteous, time, space, and even reality itself can seem to bend to ensure its accomplishment. Training is no different. Now, it doesn't exactly hold the same gravity that the eternal wisdom of the Hebrew Bible holds, but the real difference is that in the case of your training, it is not a matter of faith, but of simple observation. Ask yourself, before you discovered kettlebells and calisthenics, what did you have to do to stay in reasonably good shape? Hit the pavement for 90 odd minutes while you huffed and puffed and worked up a sweat while jogging? Complicated body part splits with machines and cables and whatnot from a page torn out of Muscle and Fitness at your local Globo gym? You put in a lot of hard work and eked out a decent physique and fitness level. And even then, maybe only barely. And if you were anything like me, you also probably found that no matter how much machine work you did, you still felt weak as hell. But then something happened. You discovered kettlebells. And suddenly your strength seemed to pile up higher and higher, week after week, making what felt like 10 years of progress in mere months. You discovered calisthenics, and before you knew it, your mastery of the nonstop pull of gravity shot through the roof, allowing you to toy with the world around you instead of letting it bully you like some schoolyard jerk that you ran and hid from as a little kid. You discovered movement through original strength, and in mere minutes felt your body release the brakes on your joints and muscles and grant you your youthful movability, whereas prying on your muscles and joints for months previously only produced a fraction of what you were now feeling in mere minutes. Was this not like being catapulted forward toward your goals at lightning speed from what seemed to be hundreds of miles away? Were you not yourself, quote unquote, jumping the path? Strength and movement training and the divine play by different rules. With the divine, you are not in control. With strength and movement training, you are. But one thing that's similar is this. With the divine, you don't get such grandiose help from the heavens by following the wrong path, nor do you with strength and movement. Because kettlebells, calisthenics, and natural human movement allow you to tap into your body's dormant strength and power machinery to ignite new and dazzling levels of brute force in short order, they do it specifically if you're using your body the way that it was made to be used. This happens initially simply by you getting started. But after you jump to your first destination on the path, you run the risk of slogging around slowly just like you did when you were whiling away in a stale gym or pounding the pavement with your expensive running shoes. Now, that is, of course, unless you know the next mystical secret to jump the path again. So think for a moment about the essential building blocks of supreme strength, brute power, and effortless athleticism. What were the raw materials that let you build up to it to this point that you were able to get to where it felt like you were jumping the path? Well, we can boil them down to three meta skills. Number one, muscular activation. And this is via tension, both intentional and reflexive, like the kind of tension that your body builds with the original strength resets. Number two, proper technique. And number three, practice. Now, you stack these three things on top of each other, and it's like stepping into Han Solo's Millennium Falcon and making the jump to hyperspace. But almost invariably, something happens to nearly every serious kettlebell, bodyweight, and movement trainee. You once again find yourself on the slow, agonizing slog forward despite using better tools and methods. Progress creeps forward rather than leaps forward. Gains that once flowed forth like the waters of the Nile are now seemingly hidden within a rock that must be smashed with all your might in order to get so much as a drop to quench your thirst for progress. Has your erstwhile road to paradise descended into the road to perdition? It might, but it doesn't have to. At some point or another, your bold and bright path forward begins to twist into a new direction. And more often than not, what I see happen is that you veer off this path and you don't even realize it. Tactics that worked initially have now become watered down, and your strength has outgrown them. But the three meta skills remain: muscular activation, proper technique, and practice. The key to going higher in your achievements is to go deeper in your training. And the key to going deeper in your training is by using your tools of choice to wake up the dormant potential hidden in your nervous system, waiting for the right signals to be unleashed. And nothing does it quite like bottoms up kettlebell training. By tapping directly into your central nervous system through your grip, your hands hold 15% of your body's supply of tactile afferent fibers or sensory nerve fibers, and this carries information from your skin to your CNS. So by tapping directly into your central nervous system through your grip, you can connect a vastly better stimulated nervous system to all of your muscle groups and movement patterns and enforce nearly picture-perfect technique without complicated cues racing through your head and distracting you from the task at hand, without woo-woo drills that burn up precious training time, without state-of-the-art voodoo equipment that drain your wallet and produce paltry little by way of results, all just by tapping into the God-given power of your soft machine, as you were divinely designed to do. And the bottoms-up kettlebell crash course will reveal how. But in the meantime, you can remember this formula. Enforced proper technique plus automatic deep skill building plus a natural buffer against overworking equals warp speed strength gains, all while protecting and even fortifying your muscles, joints, and body as a whole. The next bold step on your path begins below. Prepare to jump. So this is going to be coming out in a few short days as of the time of this recording, and I hope you will be intrigued enough to give it a shot, because I, again, have used bottoms-up kettlebell training for myself and for my students with great effect. To give you one example, one of my students, a gal named Holly, had a bunch of shoulder issues and was kind of precluded from doing a lot of pressing, and she wanted to recertify her StrongFirst Level 2 certification. And what I had to do is lots of bottoms-up pressing. And when I say lots, I don't mean tons and tons of reps, but rather that was really the only pressing that I had her practice. And lo and behold, she was able to pass her military press test on the very first time. And she told me that she had previously never been able to do it. She always had to send in a video later in order to complete the certification, but she was able to do it in person at the event, no troubles whatsoever. Now, I have also done that, and I used a very experimental program, and I'm going to be putting together a special bonus piece of information on exactly the protocol that I use. Interestingly enough, in an email conversation with none other than Pavel himself, I sent him the template that I used, and he said he liked it. And he's not super lavish with his praise. He's always very measured. He's very very calculated and not one to exaggerate by any stretch of the imagination. So if he says he likes it, to me, that's a sign that I was on the right track. And even more so, I was on the right track because I successfully passed my SFG2 recertification with a 40 kilogram or 88-pound kettlebell military press. And I almost never went heavier than 53 pounds or 24 kilos by doing bottoms up work. And ordinarily, it was quite a bit less than that. That was roughly around the peak of most of the bottoms up work that I was doing. So very few reps, very modest weight, really a fraction of the 40 kilos. I wasn't pushing myself to the edge, and it gave me more than enough time and energy to practice everything else that needed to be passed in order to pass the certification. Lo and behold, I managed to do it sight unseen, no problems whatsoever. And again, I think bottoms-up kettlebell training is the final frontier for a great many people. And by learning how to implement it and make the most out of it, I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised at all the gains that you get from it. So the bottoms-up kettlebell crash course coming out very soon. We'll show you how to do it. It's only available to people who are on my daily email list, however. I'll include a link in the description of the show notes for you to hop on board if you feel keen. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask away. I am here to answer anything you might have that you would like to have answered. With that said, I got to run. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to like it, subscribe, share with a friend. All this stuff helps the show grow. Of course, it helps to improve the nonstop war against weakness that we're always fighting, and helps to make people a lot better, stronger, and happier. So again, feel free to pass it along, like, share, show some support, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have fun and happy training.